Good evening. I'll call this meeting of the Cartersville City Council to order. If you'll please stand for our invocation and pledge.
Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, once again we assemble ourselves in the chambers of council to do diligence of your business of the city. We ask for direction and guidance and wisdom and understanding as we make decisions for the good of our city. And also, Father, at this time we'd like to take a special break to give a special blessing to our city manager, Ms. Brock, whom right now is sitting with a grandmother in convalescence. We should go with them, comfort them, and strengthen her that she come back in full spirit with great news. We ask these blessings and all blessings in your Son Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Join the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Enter the roll, please.
Carrie Hodge, Ward 1.
Here.
Jay Stepp, Ward 2.
Here.
Carrie Rock, Ward 3.
Here.
Calvin Cooley, Ward 4.
Here.
Gary Fox, Ward 5.
Here.
Taft Red, Ward 6.
Here.
Gang's all here, folks. First order of business is the approval of our council meeting minutes from October 3rd, and you've had an opportunity to look these over well in advance of this evening. Now would be the opportunity to make any edits to those minutes, or if there are none, a motion to approve would be in order.
Motion to approve minutes.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Porter, you have the first order of business this evening.
Yes, Mayor. The Convention and Visitors Bureau, the City Council appoints one of the members, David Friedrich, is the new president of Barnsley, the new general manager, and he will fill the unexpired term of Sean Jarvis for the term expiring December 31, 2022.
Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Menino, you have the next set of appointments, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Ron Goss and Valerie Holt are two of our Historic Preservation Commission members, and they have stepped off the board. Jeffrey Grover and Brad Galland are recommended for your approval for the replacement of Ron and Valerie.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? If not, a motion is in order.
Motion to approve.
A second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Porter, you've got the next few.
Yes, Mayor. The second reading, the ordinance for the sale of fire station property, the new fire station 3 that's being constructed on 15 Charlie Harper Drive. We have an agreement in place with Village Hill Eckstein to purchase .0832 acres for $18,559.
Questions, comments, or motions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
The next item is the Calyx equipment. This is, allows us to split fibers into 32, one fiber into 32 additional fibers. That manual maintenance is $5,995, and the budget items recommended for your approval.
Thank you. Questions, comments, or motions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next one for you, Dan.
The next item is we've met with One Digital, a new broker for medical insurance and ancillary products with Blue Cross and Blue Shield, which is the primary insurance, health insurance coverage for our city employees and retirees under 65. We've been able to secure a 2% rate reduction if City Council approves that. That'll be about a $95,000 savings from last year to this year's number. In addition to that, the renewal with the Visas, which is a voluntary vision coverage that we have for our employees that elect that coverage. And also United Healthcare, which is our senior supplement for those over 65 or disabled, is actually a 6% rate increase, and I recommend approval of all three of those products.
Questions or discussion?
Dan, I missed the work session. Have we discussed any portion of the wellness?
We have not.
So that'll come at a later date?
I can bring something back to the City Council. We did have the mandatory wellness this year, and there are some, depends on where you want to go with it. It costs us about $25,000 for that results testing this year. It did show where some people have risk categories, but it's up to City Council if you want to pursue that further to make it more elaborate. If you want to do the same thing again for 2020, we do have $50,000 in wellness dollars, again, being offered by Blue Cross and Blue Shield that can offset any of those costs if you so choose.
But we don't have to decide that tonight.
You don't, unless you, I mean, if you, I guess the way I would look at it, if you wanted to do something more elaborate than last year, or I'm sorry, this year, then it's gonna cost us more than $25,000. There is about a $95,000 savings if we have the 2% rate reduction. So if you,
When have they already done those screenings?
we did it for 2019, 2020, we had set sometime, in the first quarter of 2020.
So in the renewal, was it discussed?
We talked about if we wanted to do something, and Corporate Health Partners, One Digital has worked with them in the past, that would probably be our only on-site wellness company. I did not bring any proposals back to the city council because I was kind of waiting for this discussion to see how you wanted to proceed with it.
Okay.
Jason, in your experience, how well does that move the needle? If you do the cut, does it really make that big a difference?
Well, I mean, that all, all consultants will tell you, and definitely as far as wellness providers are going to tell you that coaching is going to actually make an impact. If you tell one, it's nice to be able to be told, hey, yes, you're in a different category, but the second is actually enticing you to follow through, and either on your own or via coaching, and it's result based, and it's basically, hey, if you there's, obviously it would be maybe a little bit too much to entail tonight, but coming into our screenings for next year, maybe it can be something that, hey, if you're not meeting these requirements for 2000, so it sort of leads into a little bit what I was telling you, Gary, is, as a whole, one thing that we had talked about in our sessions before we made a choice on our consultants was looking at where we are getting a benchmarking as far as other cities and other counties, who we're competing with, if our benefits are as rich or more than other communities, what we're charging if they're in line or less or more. I think all that sort of comes into back to if we did a wellness program where we actually had what you would call, they don't like to call it surcharges, but if you don't meet the requirements, in essence, you pay a little bit more. But we haven't, that was something that's not, normally we tackle these things separately, so I would prefer to keep that separate. But I think that's something that council wants information on going forward.
Okay, would you like to get us to get a proposal, bring back the next council meeting?
I think probably need to talk about this offline. It's a different item that we're here tasked to do tonight, and we can sort that out and give you some direction.
Yes, but yeah, we would want to see that. But in regards to this, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Chief McCann, thank you.
As you guys are aware, last year we purchased new tasers, and we entered into a payment plan, and the payment is $14,000 this year. It's federal asset forfeiture money, and I request y'all's approval. to pay.
Questions, comments, or motions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you, Chief. Mr. Jones, you have the next four, I believe.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everyone. First up's our Rogers Station water main replacement. This is a project that has been on the books for quite some time, and we're happy to get it to this point. On October 1st, we opened bids here in the council chambers and received 7 bids. The low bid was from KM Davis Contracting for $1,196,643 even, and this will allow us to install a little over a half a mile of water mains in an area that is served by small diameter galvanized plumbing from the 50s and has never had fire hydrant fire service in that neighborhood at all. So this is going to be a big improvement for them. The range of bids, our high bid was $1.8 million, so we are very happy with the bid we've received, and it is a budgeted item and under budget.
Okay. Thank you. Any discussion? And if not, a motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next item, please, Bob.
Yes, sir. We have two high-service pumps at the water treatment plant. They are powered by 1,000 horsepower electric motors. One of those pumps has for some time been shutting down with a thermal fault. It essentially gets too hot and says, hey, I need to cut myself off. We've obviously had a higher than normal demand for water in the last couple of months with it being so dry. We need to get this pump fixed while we're in this high demand period. We asked for quotes from 3 vendors that we've used before for this type of work. And the low bid came from Coal Electric. We asked them for 2 numbers. We asked them for a recondition, which is basically just clean the thing up and make it work, test run it, make it work. Then for a rewind, the rewind would be what we call a rebuild of the motor. What I'd like to ask for is an authorization not to exceed $50,000. Their price for the rewind was $41,000 and change, but there may be additional machine work to repair bearings and things that we won't know until we take the motor apart. So on this, I'd ask for a not to exceed $50,000, and it's a budgeted item through water plant maintenance.
Thank you, Bob. Any discussion on this item? And if not, a motion's in order.
Motion to approve not to exceed $50,000.
I'll second that.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Can we get tech support for the iPad as part of it? Next item, please.
Okay. Next up, we have a change order. This is related to our watershed protection plan. The watershed protection plan is a requirement of the new NPDES wastewater discharge permit that we received last year. The plan essentially requires us to monitor streams in the area to determine whether or not the water quality is being maintained, improved, or diminished as a result of activities going on. When we originally brought the consultant's proposal to you for preparing the plan, it was based upon 6 sites in the guidance document from EPD, and they said, hey, we think this is what you'll need. Here's our cost for doing so. When they submitted the draft plan, it came back and there were additional sites requested that were not in keeping with the guidance document. So we got into a negotiation back and forth about how many sites are we going to need. That ran them over on their proposed cost because they did not anticipate doing that. The net result of that was an additional $4,667.50. That would bring the total cost of the plan to $10,897.50, and that was for Rent McDuff and Associates as the consultant on that.
Okay, thank you. Questions or discussion on this item? If not, a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next item for you, Bob.
The last one for me tonight will be our first change order on the wastewater plant nutrient construction. We've been under actual construction for about 6 months. Within the original approved contract, there's a $500,000 owner-directed item in there that allows us to work with changes as they come up and keep the project moving without having to wait in 2-week cycles to come back to you for that approval. What I'd like to do is to advise you of where the project is and to true that number up every 6 months unless you'd like it done more frequently. So what we've done is in this first 6 months, we have changed scope, we've added scope, we've had to do field changes because of unknown. So it's the net result of all the changes that have happened in that first 6 months. And it resulted in a reduction in the contract price of $781,146.52. So we're to the good right now. We'll see how the next 6 months goes. The one thing I do think that is encouraging is we probably have 80+% of the underground work done. And that, in my opinion, is where the biggest risk for these humongous change orders come from, because we run into conflicts. We don't know about rock or voids or any of those things that can cost a tremendous amount of money. So fingers crossed, we've gotten this far.
I was going to say, which is amazing to me since you've decided to jinx it with the final 20% by saying something.
Absolutely. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Any other question or discussion on this? And if not, a motion's in order.
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
And while Mr. Hampton's making his way up, I'll entertain a motion to add 2 items to the agenda this evening.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. We'll have those 2 items added. We'll take those up after Derek is done. Good evening, sir.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. For consideration is a release for a insurance claim that happened up at the new Marriott. One of their subcontractors, Savannah Excavation or Excavating, I gave her my document, dug into our new cable we installed up there. We had to do a repair. They actually knocked out the whole circuit, put the conference center in the dark. It's a big deal. So everything was marked properly, so it was their fault. They filed an insurance claim, and the only thing we need to get the payment from the insurance company is for this release to be signed that would relieve them from any future damages. The amount was, Sam, $2,941, I believe, and that would help us recoup our costs on that. So I'm requesting authorization for Mayor and Clerk to sign that document so we can get paid.
Thank you. Questions, comments, or motions?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Chief Carter, you've got the first added item this evening, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Council. In July, we have one of our administration emergency response vehicles that was involved in an accident. Later on, that vehicle was totaled. Tonight, I bring forth a request to replace that departmental SUV. We will utilize our already budgeted vehicle that we had this year under the lease pool. We place the request for quotes on our city website as we normally do. We also hand deliver to all the local vendors. We did have 2 responsive bidders that came back to provide us with a vehicle, and on our specifications there was only one of those vendors that actually met all the areas of the specification. So tonight I would ask you to approve Prater Ford for $43,697.76, which is a little over $1,300 below our lease pool budget. This is for a 2020 Ford 4x4 Expedition. This is the best bid price, and it will be purchased out of lease pool.
Okay. Any discussion? If not, a motion is in order.
Motion to approve this best bid by Prater Ford.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Chief. Mr. Lovell, if you'll handle this last item for us, please.
Yes, Mayor, as y'all are aware, we recently got an assessor's award, basically on 9.265 acres in fee simple and 1.773 acres in easement that the city is requiring. Pursuant to that, y'all are required to transfer the funds of that award into the Superior Court, and I'm asking for your approval to do that.
Do you need the exact number or just the approval?
Just the approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Reinhardt, you've got the finance report tonight to close things out.
Excuse me, Honorable Mayor and Council, we'll be looking at the August 2019 and comparing to August 2018. The general fund revenues decreased from last year by about $14,000. Expenses increased by $369,000. 2 areas of revenue that I look at in the general fund are local option sales tax. There is a increase there of about $33,000. And then building permits and inspection fees, there's a decrease there of about $38,000. The water and sewer fund revenues increased over last year by $108,000. Expenses increased by $426,000. This is due to increased personnel expenses, decreased operating expenses, decreased debt service expenses, and increased capital expenses. In the gas fund, revenues decreased over last year by $105,000. Expenses decreased by $234,000. This is due to increased personnel expenses, increased operating expenses, decreased cost of purchased gas, and decreased capital expenses. In the electric fund, revenues increased over last year by $111,000. Expenses decreased by $56,000. This is due to increased personnel costs, increased operating expenses, decreased cost of purchasing electricity, and decreased capital expenses. In the stormwater fund, revenues increased over last August by $6,000. expenses decreased by $60,000 due to increased personnel expenses, decreased operating expenses, and decreased capital expenses. In the solid waste fund, revenues increased over last year by $55,000, I'm sorry, and expenses decreased by $28,000 due to increased personnel expenses, increased operating expenses, and decreased capital expenses. And finally, the fiber optics fund, revenues decreased over last year by $10,000, expenses decreased by $169,000. This is due to decreased personnel expenses, decreased operating expenses, and decreased capital expenses. As far as the cash position, for the month of August, total unrestricted cash decreased slightly, and total restricted cash decreased quite a bit.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or discussion on the finance report? You got anything to add to that? Okay. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Any other business that needs to come before council this evening? Other than Cartersville football teams won 55 straight games. They play tomorrow night on Georgia Public Television. It's going to be a good game, but we want everybody out there to give them the home field advantage they deserve and go Canes. So that being said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay.
There you go.